We all know that sport can teach us lots of things, but I think it's really endurance sports that teaches us the most about health span and longevity. In the world of endurance, life as an ultra is a common phrase that we hear. And so today I'm delighted to take you inside the mind of a world champion ultra runner. My guest is none other than Harvey Lewis. Harvey set the world record of 450 miles over 4.5 days of running. And while you might assume we're going to talk about training the body, really not so much. We're going to talk about training of the mind, which is really what Harvey credits with all of his success. We're going to hear his perspective on life, and he's going to talk about routines and habits that he views are the things that give us freedom. He's in the final stages of preparing for the World Championships, and it's clearly top of mind. I'm Scott Fulton. Good to be with you. Let's get on with the show. Just back from running Bigfoot 200, 65 hours in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. Harvey Lewis, great to have you on the program.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks so much for having me here.
Now, that probably shocked a few people who don't know what ultra is, and we'll hopefully get some sense of that as you and I go forward here. But just from a grounding standpoint, why are we talking about ultras for somebody who mainly focuses on health span and aging? And so I think as we go through the talk today, some of those insights and connections will start to become evident. And you and I haven't had a conversation about this, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what you've learned out there in the miles. So maybe before we start into any of that stuff, you're a teacher and you do ultras. How does that mix work? I know a lot of teachers who have a hard time getting energized. Clearly, that's not an issue for you.
Well, today, this is our first full week back of teaching. And I definitely, it is an ultra in itself because, I always feel a little more tired the first couple weeks back and have to battle through that fatigue. But I've definitely endeavored into this ultra world. So I do races, ultra marathons. I also love really any type of running race. And I enjoy a lot of other activities in nature, including hiking. But I run races that are over a marathon distance, and sometimes they're several hundred miles or even further than that. And it's certainly, it has complemented my teaching. Like I actually, for the last 13 years, I commute back and forth to work every day. So it complements in that regard that my training is often my commute back and forth to work, but also in keeping pace with the younger generation. It helps do these activities that keep me like really fit, and it's exciting for me like to participate in these really colossal events which challenge the mind, body, and spirit. And I like to use these sometimes with my students to challenge them with like maybe the thoughts of like something they might think is not possible. Yeah, I don't expect like everyone to grab onto running as an example, but I do use like some of my adventures in my teaching.
Well, and that's partly one of the things I wanted to explore with you. So thanks. I am always coming back to this when I talk to people of all ages, is that when we think about what human capacity is, most of us don't come anywhere near testing what our capacity is. And I'm an example of that. It really wasn't until my 40s until I discovered I actually had some endurance running in me. I'm thinking, wow, I kind of missed the opportunity years. And that's what I think is pretty exciting when I see people like you doing what you do, and you're not a 21-year-old anymore, right? You've got some miles in your shoes and a few turns around the world. So it's also important for people to realize age isn't the same factor that we used to think it was either, right?
Yeah, in fact, I've been running ultras now for 29 years. I did my first one back in 1996, and I was not an overnight sensation by any stretch of imagination. It took me mm, I guess it was about 14 years before I won my first ultra. And then from there on, I've really been climbing, and believe it or not, I really kind of hit a new pinnacle, even like in my latter 40s. And like after 25 years of ultra running, I was for 3 years in a row, I ranked in the top 10 ultra runner of North America. Won a number of races from like Badwater to a race called Big's Backyard World Championship, which took me 4.5 days and 450 miles of running. So I really, it's really fascinating how you can use like strategy, training strategy, developing your mind, and you can get stronger. And even now, I'm amazed and impressed by other stories within ultra running that inspire me. So I have a friend, Bob Becker, who probably should be on the show. Maybe he has in the past. And he at age 80, he just finished the Badwater 135, which iconic 135-mile race up and down three mountains in Death Valley National Park in the hottest time of year, and he did not finish it at 77. So he came back, changed his nutrition plan, went to eating more plant-based foods, but he has a really strong coach. She had him working on balance and his strength, and he also uh, did a number of races to lead up to this comeback. And yeah, at age 80, he surpassed. He improved his time by over 3 hours from what he did at age 77. So it's really, yeah, running 135 miles across the desert stuff for everyone, but it can be applicable to everyone in terms of their own life story, whatever you're at, whether that's walking to the end of your street, aiming to get 15 minutes of exercise a day, or you're pushing to a new effort.
You mentioned earlier, and thanks for bringing Bob up because he was on my list of things I wanted to make sure we hit on today. You mentioned earlier around you do a lot of your training to and from work, which is the school. And that's one of the common things I see with endurance athletes is there is a real need for efficiency, right? It's not convenient about wasting time. There are only 24 hours in the day. You need time to sleep and recover properly. And so that's one of the things I certainly see. And it kind of ties into when I think about how we plan and approach life from an organizational standpoint.
Mm.
Endurance imposes organization on you, right? Like maybe you can talk a little bit about how you prepare for a race, but even how do you organize your life so that you've got time to do the things that you also want to do, which is not always about running, clearly.
Well, I don't like to use the word impose. Really, I like to think about the way I also like vocalize and think through everything I do. And when I think about these things, I don't look at them as like, I look at routines and habits as being on the spectrum of like giving more freedom. Some people might think that, oh, I'm like, I don't want to be a slave to like doing something every day for 30 minutes or an hour. Like that's just too much. And I have other important things I want to do. But the benefits of doing that mean that you can walk up and down the stairs without losing your breath, or you can uh, do go on a trip somewhere in the country or overseas and not have any issue when you're carrying your backpack around. It's like there's a lot of unlimited number of benefits that come from treating your body like a Ferrari. It's like, so I would say that, yeah, I have a really strong routine, and it's important to develop habits that just become your lifestyle. And someone recently told me on a trail this summer, Austrian I was running with, he said, age is a lifestyle choice. And I thought that was super powerful because not for everybody. I mean, there are certainly like gravitational pulls, and it's not like being entirely to ignore those gravitational pulls, but we do have a lot of influence over our life in terms of like our lifestyle. When I was a teenager, I was really what you would say is like an unhealthy teenager. I was like the second biggest in my school. I had like heartburn. Typically, most days I had irregularity with like my digestion, uh, and I guess I had a low self esteem in terms of my self image as well, and I had like a lack of I guess like sort of floating with the wind. Yeah, so I feel I'm not trying to say that my life is better than anyone else's, but I'm saying that by developing routines, positive routines, it can make your quality of life higher. You will feel physically better. You'll have more energy. You'll have less issues, and like incorporating those routines is super powerful.
Yeah, and as you talked there at the start around people who feel like they don't have time, and again, as an ultra runner, you're always looking much further down the lens or down the road than most of us would. You have a reason to do that if you're going out to do 4 days of continuous on your feet. We'll get into what a backyard is in a minute. But by habit, you look longer than most of us do because you have to. But in the course of doing that, where I see or what I talk about the same thing is what do you want time for, right? Time is more than just the hour, and it's great to live in the moment. Like, yeah, I'm loving this moment, getting to talk to you. That's not about not enjoying the moment. It's all around how much time do you want in your life, and that's not about how long you live. How much really good time, and that's what I see as I'm a few years down the road from you, and clearly we start to see a separation happen where if you don't take some investment into your health long term, it just starts to fade away. You don't notice it. It's not something that shows up until you kind of look at somebody next to you and say, how do they do that? That's just at their age, right? I had the same, my first Iron for me was when I sat watching the TV coverage was an 80-year-old accountant, and they were interviewing him during transition. And I, kind of like you talked about Bob Becker, and I sat there and said to myself, if he can do it, why can't I? And it was a huge motivator. And it's hard to imagine until you get there, but it changes your life in terms of bringing so much energy and time to it. So let's take people in a little bit, because I like to give a sense of what it is that you do. And so maybe talk about, because it was new to me, backyards. So I'll kind of set this up. When you and I set our time up, it was back in the spring, and you said, I got a bunch of travel, which I followed you, and you stopped in Africa on your way to Queensland to go do the race down there.
Dead cow, Dolly.
The
Yeah.
dead cow.
Masters Backyard
Yeah.
Ultra. Yeah.
And I watched that with amazement. I had it going on my screen the whole time, and I would get up in the morning and he's still going. And I'd work through the day and I'd go to bed, get up in the morning, and he's still going. So talk about backyard, because it's such a cool format and unlike anything else.
Backyard Ultra is like no other race on the planet. It's a last person standing format. So basically, you have an hour to cover 4.167 miles or 6.7 kilometers, which over 24 hours equates to 100 miles. So if you finish your loop in less than 60 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, for example, you'll have 10 minutes where you can go to your tent. You can like have as much food as you want. You can lay down, put your feet up, stretch, take a nap, but you have to be back in the starting corral at the top of the hour. If you are not in the crowd, then you are out of the game, and there's no excuses. So every day you're running 100 miles, and the race starts off like the one in Australia. We had over 250 people, and as you're going, people fall off for different reasons, and it just keeps on going. So Laz, he came up with this race. It's sort of engineered. There's a famous book, the Long Walk, actually is being made into a film this fall, uh, by Stephen King, and it kind of has the same sort of like baseline, but it's a fun format because everybody is tied for first for as long as the race goes. And then the final runner is only permitted to go one additional yard or lap than the second to last runner that drops out. So, like, that second to last runner is called the assist. And we are getting ready for the World Championship, which will be October 18th. So, as soon as I get off here, I'll be going out to run for my third time today. And so it's it is definitely an event that pushes you physically, in terms of your endurance. You have to also be really strategic in terms of like your nutrition. You have to constantly be fueling with calories and liquids. And you also have to, if you don't sleep, maybe you're not going to sleep. I've struggled with sleep myself. You still have to like find a way to fight through the sleep deprivation, which you can then end up like having hallucinations, and these sorts of things potentially. But it's a really critical, like to pace yourself like the right amount. If you go too fast, you burn yourself up. If you go too slow, you don't have any time to reset at the end of each yard or lap, to get ready for the next lap. So there's a real equilibrium with that and a strategy. And then it's also just a psychological battle between the different runners who are in the race. Each one attempting to show that they're completely unfazed by the days and days and days and nights of running, and that they're going to go forever. But yeah, the 2023 individual world championship, I ended up winning with 4.5 days and 450 miles. And like today, there's more than 10,000 people participating in these races in over 70 countries, over 400 different races all around. So it's become very competitive for sure.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to watch. I like endurance sport anyway, and I'll follow. You know, if I know some people in some races, some pros, will
Yeah.
follow. It's just, and as you sit here watching, it's just a
Mhm.
great opportunity because you can't help thinking about what you're doing out there during that time, right? And so thanks for mentioning about the head games because I watched the dead cow race I watched pretty closely, and I was watching Phil Gore and Sam Harvey
Yes.
coming down, right? And so that's what I
Yes.
saw.
Yes.
What Phil was doing, he's saying, "I got it." Right, and you could tell Sam was, he was hanging on and hanging on, right? And you kind of
Sure.
hope for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
comeback. And I'm sure in any race, you never know how you're going to fare until you're in it, and right, but you got to show up, right?
Yeah. Bill did amazing. He got the world record, 119 hours. He missed. He was just one lap short of 500
And,
miles. So he's definitely like shown that he's going to be a formidable force in October. He has a hypnotist. He has a nutritionist. Yeah, yeah, he had all these people at the event with him. So there is definitely some really interesting like elements that he's tying together, and it's going to require me to definitely pull off some magic show to beat him and some of the other runners that are coming in October.
and is that part of why you like to go?
Hey, I like being the underdog. It's no worries. I've been the underdog most of my life. So, I actually prefer the position of the underdog.
Yeah, because if it's just showing up to defend, I think that gets old. Like if there's no real competition, no matter what activity you're in, it's not a lot of fun,
Yeah.
right? But the idea of the
Oh
risk
yeah.
is really
The,
what kind of gives it the edge, I assume.
yes, absolutely. That the competition continues to rise, and that's exciting because it causes the people in the race. It causes me to also rise. Uh, yeah, I have to also improve myself, which yeah is and there's a it's an exciting race. So it's going to push me in every element.
The
But yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's part of the draw. That it's hard to understand until you're in there, but it really is about the challenge. Probably more. I'm guessing it's more about the challenge than the actual winning. Now, that probably varies by individual, perhaps, but in terms of the
yeah,
attraction,
yeah. I think it is attraction. Is what attracts like over 10,000 people to it. Is like the opportunity
right?
to beat yourself, like to beat what you think is your
And
own
that
potential.
that atmosphere is what I see. And so, events that attract a lot of people, there's one common theme, and it's positivity. And in the ultra world, if I pointed to one community who is incredibly positive in their outlook, it's the ultra world. Talk to me about why you think that is.
Ultra scene, it really does attract positive people. I mean, it's not like we have big giant stadiums. So, you're doing this, you have like you really have to be wanting to do this for your own, like there's an internal desire to want to do it. And then yeah, it's like the camaraderie has always been amazing. Going back to when I first did an ultra back in the 90s, that was probably the main thing that drew me back was just what I saw amongst the people out there. And it's we're competitive, but also it's not surprising if someone's out of ice and I'm in bad water, then our team's gonna lend ice to the other team. If I'm like running up a mountain and I notice the runner in front of me went the wrong way, I'm gonna definitely shout out like, "Come on back! You're going the wrong way." So I mean, and there's like many times where I've gotten like positive support from other runners in so many ways. So yeah, we definitely have a really positive environment amongst our sport, which is great and is very I feel it's inclusive. You have all different like yeah any demographics, and especially like maybe your audience has a wide age range. Like I mean I see a lot of ultra runners of many different ages. One of my closest ultra running friends, Ed Roseau, I actually met him in my first ultra, and he's like in his mid 80s, and he's still going and doing like 24-hour races. So it's pretty inspiring for me to see
Well,
that.
and you mentioned some of the older athletes, and how I came to you was really through kind of my experience of following Mike Fremont, right? And so talk for
Ah,
people who
yes.
don't know who Mike is, kind of what Mike's been doing and what your relationship is with Mike, because I think it's just fascinating to watch.
Mike is a very good friend of mine, and he is a centenarian. He's actually 103 now. You can look him up on like Mike Fremont and the Ritual podcast. I say he's probably one of the most inspiring centenarians on the planet, and not only that, one of the most inspiring people on the planet. And Mike has really been active up until like even age 100. He was still covering like 5 miles 3 times a week and doing 10 pull-ups. So I've known Mike definitely like the last. 10 years. And yeah, I've seen gravity has pulled at him, but relative to like the population, like he is an example of like defying to a degree some of that gravity. So we did the 1 mile race at the pig this spring, and we had a whole entourage of like the South Korean film or news team and all the Cincinnati news team following him. He really like was
Cool.
sparked.
Cool. Yeah, it's it's shocking. So I'll use some video sometimes of Mike in my class when I teach,
Mm.
and I watch people's faces just go like, oh my God, like wow, how is that possible? Right? And so it's kind of like we said earlier. It's like, and that's really the goal here is
Yeah.
this is possible. Not for everybody. Not everybody's going to live to as old as Mike is or do what they're doing, but man, even getting
Right.
80% there, that's well within the reach of most
Yeah.
people if they make some or show some interest in it. We talked about the kind of what these events are like, and you've shared the experience somewhat, and we talked a little bit about the positive side. I have to think that there are some pretty dark moments when you're out there as well. You talked a little bit, or you mentioned about hallucinations and things. But this is not an easy event. It's not like doing miles on the road, like people who run a 10K or do a marathon. This is another whole world. Tell me maybe an example of when things really went south, because sometimes you maybe came back out of it too. I don't know, but it's
Sure. Yeah. So I'm trying to think in a context of like your audience. Like I think it's good to push yourself and give yourself challenges that cause you to mentally have to continuously refresh or to work on your mind. And what I'm talking about right here is a bit of an extreme event, and it's but people could find a 5K, it might be a 10K, it might be a half marathon, it might be a 10K trail race, or it might be like an orienteering experience or a kayaking trip. There's so many different ways you can go about, creating an adventure that's is challenging, but it's not going to totally destroy you. And yeah, for the Bigfoot 200, that race, you certainly had its challenges. I like first off, I jumped into that race with about 4 days like notice, and so I didn't actually properly say taper, where I give myself like a 2 week preparation where I ease up on training. And about mile 160, I was in this part that had a sizable climb of about 4,000 feet. And it was like 86 degrees, which doesn't seem that warm, but it just so happened that it was on a gravel road with 100% exposure. Every time there was a little slice of shade, I would just cut the road in that way to hover right into it. But I also had left my hat at like a previous aid station. Somehow my crew and I we mishandled the hat. So not having a hat in the sunlight is a big deal. Yeah, and so basically, I just improvised. I grabbed like one of my shirts out of my bag, and I used a puddle of water, which was not the nicest. And I put the puddle of water hat over my head like a turban, and then it was just a slower trek. So I mean, it's 22 miles, which normally I would be fine to cover that at a reasonable pace, but it took me like 7.5 hours. It's just a long time to be exposed to the sun. I had 3 liters of water, maybe a dozen gels, some other things. I didn't ever run out of water or liquids, but I was still mindful of being in that heat like to have like a point where, okay, if I get down to like this amount of liquids, I'm gonna have to go and just sit in the shade until it gets later in the afternoon and like get some moisture on myself, so I end up like making it through that. I mean, part of it was just like being at 160 miles, you're really fatigued, and you're still far enough away that you don't quite sense that you're smelling the barn, so to speak. um and I just had to like mentally, I knew, hey, I'm, other than the chance of running out of water, I'm pretty much safe in this circumstance, so long as I'm not pushing too fast. So I was just basically, my run went to a hike there, and I basically hiked that section. And I also like took away some of my goals were like, my A goal had been like to finish in the top 10, maybe even higher. And that goal is like, it's more important now to finish the race, because I wanted to finish that race. And so I just focused on like the next aid station. I just kept my thoughts positive as well as I could, and I fueled and like, took in calories the best I could with what I had, and I just kept my thoughts positive. I thought about like 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna be more disappointed in not finishing this than I will be if I, just see how I feel at the end of this section when I get to the aid station. And I'm really glad that I did finish. Now, I'm not saying that that's for everybody. Like, some people with like, I have a lot of experience, so I know how to pull myself through when I'm feeling a little bit like dehydrated, which where someone else might be new with that, that might not be a good idea. Maybe they do need to like err more on the side of caution. But I also like to have the struggle. Like for me, the struggle informs my life. It educates me. When I'm at, not every day of teaching is an easy day, and not every week is easy. And I struggle sometimes with other, with trying to be a strong teacher. And so that, it could, just in my mind, I might entertain the idea like, oh, it would be so nice to just be somewhere else right now. But you know what? I'm not going to give up on the teaching either, because I've been there. I've been in mile 160 in that, the Pacific Northwest, and I didn't give up at 160. I'm definitely not going to give up teaching. Like even when I might have some rough days, back to back, I'm going to turn it around and we're going to make it a positive experience. So that's just the way I kind of like to live. It's like I like to do these ultras. They're sometimes really tough, and I like, sometimes I do easier ultras, but sometimes I get myself into some really tough ones, and that's okay, because it kind of, it informs you in life, and like it creates some additional tenacity for other life journeys that you might have.
And I often remind people that if you want to live a long, eventful, fun-filled life, you are going to have to learn how to work through struggles, because I don't know any centenarian who hasn't run into some, what I'll say, serious shit that has been really difficult, that a lot of people would have just given up.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy. And that's part of what actually gives them the resilience to come back. And so as you're talking about it, it's by facing a challenge, you're rehearsing for the next challenge, because again, you say, well, I've come back from this before, or you mentioned there around the first time out when you get dehydrated or hyponatremic, the next time you're a little bit more informed, you see it coming, and you can start to prepare in advance for it, and you'll get practiced at it. I've got a podcast that's going to come out with a guy who's world champion at in triathlon, and that was his comment. He says, now 70, he's getting to be known for his resilience. He keeps coming back. And so that's really, as we get older, that's really, really the value I think that activities like this bring. If yeah, and
It's
I
really
was
neat.
going to suggest also I had a chance last summer to run part of the Appalachian Trail with Mike Wardian, and I assume you probably know
Oh,
Mike, or certainly know, yeah,
sure.
in terms of positive people. And it just struck me, I did a meek 10 miles with him, of the 2,190 miles that he was doing, and it just blew me away to just spend a few hours with Mike out there, like away from everything. And I didn't have the right
Yes.
shoes, couldn't find my trail running shoes, and so turned my ankle a couple of times, and
Oh,
it was not the fun outing,
that's tough.
but equipment matters for your sport too, right?
Yeah, definitely. And Michael Wardian is a great representation as well. I mean, he's doing amazing things in his 50s now, and he also has that positive attitude.
Well, and Mike, and like you, and so I wanted to kind of go here with you now and kind of get into the, people would ask me, and I'm sure they ask you, like, why do you do it? Right. And so maybe you can talk about the multiple. So you've talked about kind of why you do it for yourself, but I'm guessing there's more to it than what you're doing for yourself, because I think there's probably the bigger things are actually probably beyond you. And maybe you can, I know there's some charities, for example, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like the whys, there are so many whys with what motivates me. But certainly uh I sometimes the why is the just the beauty of being out there. But yeah, I also get reinforcement like running back and forth to work. I mean, almost every day I see somebody that yells out the window or
Yeah.
says hello, maybe a former student of mine. And that's nice. I see a lot of my students. So I with my school, when I'm going to my school, I do feel like it's like I'm modeling positive behavior about like you're taking care of your health with my students. Like that's important to me. But I also get a real push when I do an event that has a greater cause. So, for example, Biggs in 23, we teamed up with the Brighton Center, which is a nonprofit in Northern Kentucky that they manage a lot of programs from like programs with homelessness to jobs and many more. And so when I was doing the running and I'd like hear from like our team, oh, we've now raised X amount of dollars, that motivated me a lot more to stay in it. Yeah, I mean, being involved with running events, like there are so many runners that do take on like causes. Just yesterday, I was up in Columbus with a group called the Bexley Runners, and like they've really rallied around some of the runners in their group. One of them, um, her son has a rare disease, and they raise money for Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, and that's like the Columbus Marathon. Like the Columbus Marathon is a major contributor to the Nationwide Children's Hospital. So like really any of us running the nationwide, Columbus Marathon, that's always been an extra motivation. Or like the Flying Pig Marathon locally. So I mean, in really number of events around the country is like more than I could write about in a month. So yeah, I'm inspired by the other runners I meet that are doing amazing things for causes. And when I have the opportunity, I'm grateful for the chance to be a part of those.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the first ultra runners I met would have been around 2006. Woman lived right around the corner from me, and she was out I don't know what her training days were just crazy, and she had a son who was blind, and so that was her charity that she did all her races was for childhood blindness. And yeah, it kind of set the tone. And as things you were talking there, my high school math teacher also coached the cross country team. And so as Facebook has kept some of us connected, I see him now relative to the students, like my peers. He's fitter than most of my students or the students of that age. And it really kind of that long-term look of the value of keeping active is just so important. Let me hit you with what I occasionally throw out. You're a good guy on your feet. You can handle it, I'm sure. Lightning round questions.
Well, go for it.
Five questions to throw at you, quick ones. So Mike Fremont brought him up. What's the biggest lesson you learned from Mike?
Mike is successful with what he does for many reasons. One of them being that he has an amazing wife. So his wife is his champion, and she is a real important part. So yeah, I mean, getting to be an centenarian is definitely doable with exercise, nutrition, taking care of having community, but having a partner is also something that's really powerful.
When you get ready to go for your next race, what will be the first thing you usually pack?
Well, that's a great question. I think there are so many pieces to this Big's backyard. When I move, or it looks like I'm moving there, so it's pretty comical. I mean, actually, and I do joke around, I say I am actually moving there because that's part of the psychology of the race, is to refuse to give up. I'm just gonna move there. So I have so many things, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to go without my shoes. I've like Newtons. They're based out of Boulder, Colorado, and they're like my go-to.
Cool. What's the one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
Keep going. Yeah, I mean, it's basically thing in life where it may seem like it's never going to come to fruition, but keep going. And I could never predicted my success, for example, with ultra running, never, back even in 2000, in 2005, in 2010. I mean, all those stages, I could have easily just stopped doing it. And it's amazing now to be able to do the things I can do. So that just keep going.
Who would you most like to run a yard with? So I'm not talking about an athlete who runs these races. If you could get somebody, just anybody in the world to go out and do a yard with just for fun.
Well, it'd probably be Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali has been a long time favorite of mine in terms of sports figures. He had such incredible just charm. I mean, he was such a poet in his way of talking about things. And not only was he just an incredible athlete, but he was an incredible humanitarian. He did so much outside of his sport to really influence the world in a positive direction. And I mean, I feel like right now, even there's things happening that I don't touch upon, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza right now. There's a lot of things that I'm thinking about daily, but I don't talk about them.
What's the one word you'd like people to describe you when you're 90?
90. Well, I hope lively.
That's a good one. You've had enough experience because your dad's a role model too. I saw you posting about your dad. he's no kind of lame duck in any of this, right?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, you probably should have my father on the show, to be honest with you, because yeah, he's an incredible role model. Again, like he wasn't doing the things he's doing now when he was 20 years younger. And he did a lot of research. He like took some community courses with the University of Minnesota about longevity. He got into a routine where he basically does every day 40 minutes of like some sort of cardio and then 20 minutes of strength training every day religiously. And then he also has changed his diet. Like there used to be a day and age where he was all about eating steak and potatoes, and he used to tease me about being vegetarian. And now he's the principal cook, and he makes like maybe 85% of the time plant-based foods. So he's like including a lot of fruits and vegetables and rich colors, whole foods, not like processed foods. And he listens to podcasts. So he's really into Zoe and Rich Roll.
Yeah.
And so I mean it's like I'm really impressed by him.
It sounds like he'd be a great guest, yeah, because that's what my students. That's really the role model we're always looking for, right? And that's what you're a role model to lots of people out there of all ages who are really looking to understand. And that's the other attribute which I remind people of is one of the most common things among people who live healthy, long lives is curiosity.
Yeah,
because they continue to learn. They continue to want to learn.
Yeah.
So
I see that with Mike at 103. He still has that curiosity and he wants to know people's names.
Right. Yeah, at this point, he doesn't know any different, right? It's so practiced. You don't have to think about it. Yeah, I saw the same thing with my dad. It was like, and always wanting to innovate and like no way to turn it off. He hadn't worked for 25 years and he was still thinking, we were at the coffee shop. If they did this, that'd work a little better. Because just in the pattern. So, well, Harvey, I want to respect your time. I know you've got another commitment coming up. So your next big race, a big event. Remind us again what and when that is.
It will be Big's Backyard World Championship. It'll be 75 the top backyard ultra runners in the world. Coming and facing off October 18th. And you can follow from my social media, Harvey Lewis Ultra Runner. We'll post on my page like links to like follow the live stream or the updates. But also there'll be updates coming from my page. And it's definitely going to be a out of this world battle. And hope to really pull off some magic. So thanks so much for having me on the show, and anyone listening, go get it. Establish those routines and stick with them.
Great advice. Well, thanks, Harvey. You've just been an inspiration to me and millions of people who just more and more people continue to follow you. So congratulations on doing the work and leading the way. And we're all just kind of following in behind your footsteps. So thank you.
Well, I don't know, man. I think we're running side by side.
Well, I can do a few miles side by side with you, but then I got to pack it in.
Well, go get it. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I really appreciate it.
Fun talking to you, Harvey.
Likewise. Well, go get it. We'll talk later.
Congrats on a great year.
I appreciate it.
Okay,
Ciao.
Take care. Good luck. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Great to have you part of our over 10,000 strong WellSpan community. Remember to subscribe if you'd like to learn about our upcoming shows. And as always, make sure you provide some feedback, whether that's a thumbs up or a comment, a question. They're all welcome. If you'd like to subscribe to our quarterly newsletter, you can do that at wealthspan.com. We're always looking for show ideas, or maybe you think you'd like to be a guest. Again, please reach out to book a motivational talk or inquire about our leadership workshops. Email me at info@wealthspan.com. Until next time, stay engaged, stay curious, and take good care of you and those in your care.